The canyon was quiet, too quiet. Wind slipped through the red rock, whispering like voices from the dead. Calderon sat still in the saddle, his horse uneasy beneath him, ears flicking towards something unseen. The animal snorted, catching a scent that didn't belong to sand or sage. Then he saw her. Down by the dry creek bed, 5 men stood around a wooden post. Tied to it was a young Apache girl, her wrists raw from the rope that bound them. Blood streaked her arms where she had fought to break free. Her dark hair whipped in the wind, her face proud despite the bruises. The men laughed, cruel and careless, their voices echoing off the stone. Calderon's hand moved to his holster before he even thought about it. The sun flashed on his revolver's steel. One of the men turned just as the first shot rang out. Dust exploded around them. A man dropped where he stood. The girl's eyes flew open, wide, defiant, alive. The echoes rolled through the canyon like thunder. The men scattered, shouting, fumbling for their guns. Calderon fired twice more, clean, deliberate shots. When the dust settled, 2 lay dead, and the rest fled into the rocks. He holstered his weapon and dismounted, his boots crunching on the gravel. The girl hadn't moved. Her chest rose and fell fast, her eyes burning with fear, or anger, maybe both. He took out his knife and cut her ropes. "You can go," he said quietly. She staggered forward, her shoulders squared despite the tremble in her legs. She didn't thank him. She just turned and began walking barefoot into the desert, the sunset painting her figure in gold and red. Calderon watched her fade into the shimmering heat. He told himself it was over. But deep down, he knew it wasn't. That night, he camped near the edge of the canyon. His horse grazed close by while a small fire flickered before him. The flames danced across his face, carving shadows into the lines time and guilt had left there. He couldn't stop seeing her, the ropes, the blood, the look in her eyes. He poured himself coffee from a tin pot and stared into the fire. It reminded him of things he'd tried to forget, his sister's face, pale and still, taken years ago in a raid. He'd failed her. He'd sworn never again. Somewhere in the distance, a coyote howled. His horse lifted its head, ears twitching east. Calderon sighed. He knew he'd ride before dawn. By morning, he found her. She was walking along the trail, barefoot, dust clinging to her skin, stubborn as stone. When he rode up beside her, she didn't stop. "There's a town a few miles ahead," he said. "You'll need water." She gave no reply, only kept walking. By noon, they reached it, a lonely street of wooden buildings, their fronts faded by sun and wind. Curtains shifted in the windows as they passed. The town watched in silence. Calderon dismounted outside the saloon. The girl stood beside him, chin lifted though her legs trembled. Inside, the noise died the moment they entered. Every eye turned. "She needs water and rest," Calderon said. The barkeep hesitated, wiping his hands on a rag. "Not here," he muttered. A man in the corner spat. "We don't serve her kind." The girl didn't flinch. Her chin rose a little higher, pride glowing through the dirt and bruises. Calderon's voice stayed calm. "You'll serve her." His hand hovered near his holster, not in threat, but in certainty. The room held still. Finally, the barkeep slid a glass of water across the bar. She drank in silence while hate burned around her. For the first time, she wasn't alone in it. They left town before sunset. Neither spoke as they rode. The space between them was heavy with what neither dared to say, gratitude, pride, and something new that neither could name. By nightfall, they camped near another dry creek bed. Calderon unsaddled his horse and lit a small fire. The girl sat apart, her knees drawn close. He set a tin plate of beans and cornbread beside her. She didn't touch it at first. After a while, she slid it closer and began to eat, slow and quiet. When she finished, she whispered something in Apache, her voice soft and musical. He didn't understand but nodded. "You're welcome." She looked at him for the first time without defiance, just tired honesty. They shared no stories, no names. But a fragile trust began to form, thin as smoke and just as easy to lose. The next evening, the wind changed. Hot and restless, it carried the scent of rain and something darker. By dusk, lightning flashed across the horizon. They found shelter under a rocky ledge as thunder rolled. The girl shivered, sweat shining on her skin despite the cold wind. Fever burned through her. Calderon saw it in her eyes. He built a fire, small but steady, feeding it with dry sage. She mumbled in her own tongue, caught between sleep and pain. He soaked a rag and pressed it to her brow. "Easy now," he murmured. "You're safe." Rain poured hard through the night. He stayed beside her, his poncho draped over her trembling shoulders. By dawn, her fever broke. She slept quietly, her hand near his. When she woke, her strength had returned, though she said little. Calderon didn't ask. Some stories didn't need telling to be true. They rode again by sunrise, the desert washed clean by the storm. For the first time, Calderon felt the weight in his chest ease. By midday, trouble found them again. A rifle cracked across the plains, a sharp echo through the empty land. The bullet hissed past Calderon's ear, biting into the dirt ahead. He spun his horse hard. 3 riders came down the ridge, the same men, or what was left of them. "Down," he shouted. He pulled the girl from her saddle as another shot split the air. They rolled behind a fallen log, dust flying around them. His revolver barked once. Then twice. She grabbed his spare rifle without hesitation. Her aim was steady, her eyes sharp despite the fear. She fired, 1 man fell. Calderon dropped another. The third turned tail and vanished into the haze. When the shooting stopped, the world went still again. He turned to her. Blood streaked her arm where a bullet had grazed it. "You'll live," he muttered, tearing a strip from his sleeve and wrapping it tight. She winced but said nothing. When he finished, she met his eyes. "You too," she said quietly. Their gaze held. For a moment, the world around them didn't exist, only the dust, the heat, and the shared understanding between 2 people who had both seen too much. He wasn't her savior, and she wasn't his burden. They were simply survivors of the same cruel world. When the bandage was tied, she touched his hand briefly. "My name is Ayana," she said softly. Calderon nodded. "Then we start fresh, Ayana." For the first time, the wind through the grass didn't sound lonely. It sounded like promise. They traveled north, where the prairie rolled wide under an endless sky. The silence between them wasn't cold anymore. It was peace. At a trading post along the trail, Ayana stopped beside a rack of fabric. Her fingers brushed a crimson shawl, bright against the pale dust of the world. She glanced toward him, unsure. He said nothing, just gave a small nod. She lifted it gently and wrapped it around her shoulders. "It's beautiful," she murmured. "It suits you," Calderon said, a faint smile crossing his lips. That night, as they camped under the stars, the red shawl glowed in the firelight like a living flame. Calderon watched it flutter softly in the wind, and for him, it became a symbol, not of rescue, but of rebirth. They sat close to the fire, the air still and warm. "You remind me of someone," she said quietly. He turned to her. "Who?" "My brother," she whispered. "They took him when I was small. Men like those we fought. He never came back." Her voice shook, but her eyes stayed steady. Calderon looked into the flames. "I lost someone too," he said. "My sister. Years ago." Their eyes met across the fire. 2 memories, 2 wounds bound by the same loss. We carry ghosts, Ayana said softly. He nodded. Maybe that's why we found each other. The fire cracked between them, sparks lifting into the night. Above them, the stars burned sharp and clear, as if listening. For the first time in years, Calderon felt something stir inside him, hope. When dawn came, the air was heavy again, the kind that warned of violence. They followed the river south toward a canyon rimmed with jagged stone. Calderon reined in, eyes narrowing. Fresh tracks. Too many. He reached for his gun, his voice low. Stay close. Ayana nodded, the red shawl glowing in the morning light. Whatever waited ahead, they'd face it together. And for the first time, Calderon didn't feel alone.